What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Color Scheme Breakdown. This is a series in which I talk entirely too long about a particular color scheme in question. And I break down what it is, what we're looking at, the color palettes we're looking at for the color scheme. After doing that and talking about what it is, of course, I just go into a thought ramble. I give any type of history worth noting if there is any. I give my personal opinions, takeaways, things of that nature, just as a thought ramble discussion on the color scheme in question. And then I wrap things up by doing a very basic approach of how I would tackle said color scheme. And I haven't done everything, nor am I an expert painter, but I've done enough where I can be a resource if you desire it or not for the painting side of how I would tackle something. I always try to be able to tackle it while getting the best effect I can without going crazy on 97 million steps to do it. You know what I mean? So with that said, let's just dive in. And of course, you can share your thoughts in the comment section, and let's have some fun with it. Up on the chopping block this time is going to be a Xenos Force. This is going to be Tau, specifically the Farsight Enclave faction, the breakaway faction of Tau, my favorite Tau. Now, this is a red color scheme predominantly, and I just talked red with the Exorcist, but where the Exorcist can feel at home being lacquered red if you so desire or normal, I've never really given Farsight Enclave much thought of being anything but a normal approach to painting that red. So when it comes to the color scheme, we're looking at predominantly red as the main color. Gray is a nice secondary color. Black is the tertiary / accent color. This is what most of the Farsight Enclave symbol is black. This is what drone engines and their devilfish, their hover tank engines and stuff, and thrusters, I should say, tend to be, and other mechanical bits and weapon parts tend to be black. So you got the red, the gray, the black. When we do see metallics, which isn't as often as it is in some other forces, it tends to be kind of a bronze-ish brass, a bronze-ish brass, kind of difficult to say, I guess, coloration for the metallic. And then on some of the really special stuff like Farsight himself, we get a little bit of white accenting going on. Now, they're not part of the Tau Empire, so their set markings are technically, I guess you could say, Enclave markings. Same concept. But I've seen on the red armor either that light gray or a white, and I've also seen on the gray part of the armor red markings, so you have some variance there. Their symbol, Farsight Enclave's symbol, has a red circle in it. That red circle is a brighter red than the actual red armor color. It's not your eyes deceiving you when you look at the official paint ups. It's just the way it is. So, with that said, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, Farsight himself is the only one to have a blade. And that blade obviously isn't bronze, the actual blade itself, but that's a different story. That's kind of like an alien blade, right? I'm talking like more traditional metallic portions of Tau in general, portions of pulse rifles, portions of battle suit equipment and stuff like that tends to be the bronze brass. So I really like this color scheme. It's very bold. Traditionally, Tau Vasep, whatever you want to call it, is more of like a brown, yellow ochre, if that makes any sense, with some white, or we've seen more recently like the main white armor color. So this red amongst the mugshot of all the Tau stuff on the website really stands out as a nice bold color. It also isn't lost on me the intentional or unintentional reference to Gundam, right? We have Char Azambel in the form of Farsight, red battle suit, just like the red Zaku and Gelgoog and stuff that has traditionally been piloted by Char Azambel in the Gundam series. And we have red here with Farsight Enclave overall. His nemesis, or he is the antagonist of, I guess you could say, Commander Shadow Sun. She's in a white Gundam, battle suit, right? So I don't, I could just be projecting this reference on there, but it's awfully convenient and fitting. So yeah, I think that's pretty great. But as far as the coloration goes, it is quite bold, and it's not that bad. I actually have painted up Farsight stuff back in the day for a little bit. Nothing too big and I don't have any of it anymore. But I would say the red is more of a neutral tone red. It's not bright like the little red circle on the symbol is, or like a blood angel, but it's not quite as dark as like a blood raven red. It's kind of like a Samhain neutral red in a way. So anyways, really digging the scheme. I've always really liked it. It always stood out to me. Red does that, right? Red as a color scheme is very striking. It always catches your eye. And it's very fitting for the aggressive forces that are the Farsight Enclave in their methodology of war. So I think it's a nice fitting coloration for them. It stands out. They march to beat their own drum. They're not part of the Ethereal's caste system of the Tau Empire, but they are still loyal to the Tau people. So it's a very nice striking coloration. Their skin tones are just like Tau. So if you do have an unhelmeted fire warrior or something like that, you won't have ethereals. I don't have those, but you will still have that kind of almost slate gray, slightly blue, slate gray flesh tones. Blue, without being comically ultramarine blue, it's like a blue gray, is definitely their flesh tone. Even this is a bit of a saving grace because it's not a natural flesh tone we're used to seeing. So when you're painting up Tau skin tone, which is kind of a rarity amongst Tau, you will be able to get away with a little bit more creative license and it won't feel off because we're not used to seeing that flesh tone in real life. So that's good. In any case, I do thoroughly enjoy it. I would never even consider doing it in the lacquer red approach. I would do it in a standard red approach. I think it's very fitting. I think what's nice about Tau coloration in general is that we don't necessarily have the most stringent of color code marking requirements. So in the case of Farsight on battle suits, you will see like a gray strip. We have like, I guess you could call it banded armor or, panel lines in the leg armor and whatnot of battle suits. And those panel lines are sometimes blocked out in gray just to break up the red. And the way I treat the gray personally is just to help break up the monotony of red. It adds focal points of interest and helps break up the model a bit so it seems more interesting to look at. And that's how I would recommend treating it. And set markings, or in this case enclave markings, you can do them if you want, but if you don't feel comfortable with it, you just don't like the idea too much, it's not going to be something super awful to leave out, if that makes any sense. So with that said, I might as well dive full into talking about how I would attempt this color scheme. I have done Farsight Enclave in the past. So I do know that I like actually base coating both the gray areas and the red areas in the light gray. I like doing it in the gray that I'll most likely keep for the gray. So I like doing that as the base coat for basically the entire model. Even if I know there's not going to be any real gray on it, like if it was a fire warrior or something, I like doing the base coat of gray. I find doing that base coat of gray is a fantastic primary color to put red on. I feel red doesn't lose its boldness, but it's not super bright like it can be when you're doing a standard red color over a white base coat. It tends to be a bit brighter, and doing it over a light gray, it tones that down a bit, but it's still bold, and it allows you to put a bit of a white primer color down for the Farsight symbol if it's sculpted onto the model, and when you do the red on the symbol, it'll stand out because of that. The highlighting isn't super stark, so you can keep it very subtle and thus keep the boldness in check without being too bright feeling from the extreme edge highlighting, because it's not really a thing. But if you like the extreme edge highlighting, you can. It's just that it's not like it's expected of you, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of panel line type stuff on Tau, which makes them really take shading, washes, shade paint. I forget what they even call it because I just always used to call them washes. It'll take all of that, inks, shades, washes, very well. And You want to be a bit neat because red, can be a bit of a chore to rebuild up again if you make it too dark. But see, your applying of washes needs to be a bit neat into those panel line gaps that are there, but they take them so well, and it really helps when you're doing the subdued highlighting to really give the effect of a shade and a highlight together, and it's really nice for that. So that's one thing I've always liked about Tau, is that they take washes really well for that type of effect. I like to base coat the gray, block in the red, get the red more or less done, and then carefully go back in with the gray and touch up some gray spots. I don't know why. I feel because gray is a very neutral type of color. It doesn't have some of the nuance, like a very standard light gray doesn't have the same nuance as a red. So if I have to clean up gray, I find it easier to clean up gray, even though it could be theoretically a lighter color than the red, than I do cleaning up red, if that makes any sense at all. So that's why I like to do gray base, red everywhere I want the red, then clean up the gray, and then go into the highlights and everything else. So when it comes to flesh tones, I am never good with doing flesh tone on models. But like I mentioned earlier, Tau are Xenos. They are filthy Xenos, and but they have blue skin. They have like a blue-gray skin. So you can look at artwork, some example models, and then you can kind of extrapolate that to how you want to interpret that and do it. Maybe you want to have it be a bit more of a slate gray or a bit richer blue without being, again, comical ultramarine type of blue. You can do that. And it's a lot more forgiving because people don't have that flesh tone. So that's what makes doing flesh tones kind of difficult for Eldar and Imperium, even Chaos, is that all those flesh tones are actually very, either are human flesh tones or very close to it. So in a case of Tau, you can do kind of like a slate grayish blue tinged flesh tone, and in some flesh tones are showcased, like Shadow Sun is very fair, almost like a pale slate blue gray, but other Tau are a bit more bold with the blue gray flesh tone, so you have variance there, thus making it even easier for it to kind of work out for you. But admittedly, and in my opinion, kind of thankfully, flesh tones are a bit of a rarity, especially amongst Farsight, because typically people go heavy battle suit. But regardless, those are some thoughts if you encounter flesh tones for your Farsight Enclave. In any case, having said all that, it's a striking color scheme. I enjoy it. It's not that difficult, with just some careful use of washes, shades into the recesses, into the panel lines, and then some subtle highlighting on that red and on that gray. You will have a very striking force and a very bold looking force, which is very fitting for the Farsight Enclave. So I've about said all I can say. By all means, share your thoughts. If you collect them, share how you do it in the comment section down below. A lot of you are much better painters than I, so any resource is appreciated for anybody who stumbles across this. In any case, thanks so much for stopping by, and until next time, take it easy.